you were shaping the program for this concert, the program bears, the two pieces bears lots of symbolic meanings. Have you considered some of them when you tailoring the program? The last of the Mozarts, the first of the Mahlers?
Well, that's what my idea was, to do the last symphony of Mozart and the first, you know, the last symphony of a young genius and the first symphony of a young genius. And I proposed it to Mr. Tassovats. He consulted. We always have to know when we make programs if the orchestra played it recently. So since it wasn't the case, they accepted it, and I'm very happy. I always like to make Viennese evenings. This is another kind of Viennese evening.
Belgrade Philharmonics has its own tradition, but in a way of international frame, it's a young orchestra developing its sound and reputation, and your part is very active in that as an honorary president of the foundation. When you consider working with Belgrade Philharmonics, do you have some kind of pedagogic approach?
Not pedagogic, no, but I must tell you, I come here every few years. I cannot come every year. But every time I hear the orchestra is so developing. You know, in 2003, I did in the Colorado Hall Mahler Symphony No. 3. It was very ambitious. And I remember some of the soloists were already excellent. The main part of the orchestra not as developed. And when I came after the revolution, in the big hall, when we did Tchaikovsky 4th and Beethoven 5th, it was really, I mean, after the revolution, what can I criticize? In what shape? They were not in shape at all. But the occasion was important, and the music ended in the victory of Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. So it served a purpose. But today, the orchestra has so developed in every section. It's a pleasure. They are now looking for a new music director. I hope they find really somebody who will work with the orchestra, because an orchestra must have the vision of the music director. His vision of sound, repertoire, soloists. There must be one guiding light. And I hope in 1 or 2 seasons they will find somebody. What a pleasure again to be with one of my favorite orchestras, the Belgrade Philharmonic. Thanks to Mr. Tassovats, Minister Sahab, that I'm very happy to be here again. And I think we have too many rehearsals, but we'll see what we have. Anyway, I look forward to the concert, and let's start.
When you said after the revolution, that occasion when you came to Belgrade after October in 2000, that concert bears a great political message also.
Oh yes, sure. I was aware also that their premier, Kostunica, that was his first big public appearance. When he came into the whole hall burst out into a great ovation for him. And I was very touched looking at it from backstage. And
how many occasions like that you have in your career when the music, classical music, got itself out of concert hall and bears a social or political message?
A few. A lot in Israel. You know, playing the Victory concert in 1967 in Jerusalem with Daniel Barenboim and his wife Jacqueline Dupre was one of those great moments in the history of the Middle East, especially for Israel. Then the first time we went with the Israel Philharmonic to Germany in '71 was an occasion where, except 2 musicians, everybody volunteered to come, because we didn't know how many would, because in those days still there were people who were from the concentration camps or who lost their parents there. So they had great inner commitment to their past also, but only 2 requested not to come. And the German audience gave us an incredible welcome and accolade, especially after the Mahler First Symphony. We played the Israeli national anthem. All the Germans stood up and they were crying. It was this kind of an occasion. Then I've been with the Israel Philharmonic in 1982 into Lebanon. We went into a tobacco field and there were only Lebanese. The south of Lebanon was Christian. Lebanese Christians came to the concert, and after the concert, they came on the stage, were hugging the musicians. That was such an incredible feeling that we came and gave them some music. It was in January '82. And then in June '82, Israel invaded Lebanon, freed them of the Palestinian scourge. The Palestinians were occupying and really murdering them. So they were very grateful that the Israelis came. Because I went into Lebanon myself 5-6 days after the army went in. And they were kissing my hand in the jeep and all. The Israeli made a mistake of staying there for 3 years. It was a big mistake. And then they all turned against Israel after looking them as saviors. So these are unfortunate mistakes. But I've lived through some of these occasions, and with the music.
It's with rampa, palampa, palampa.
You mentioned Daniel Barenboim. How do you see his much energy put into West-East Divan Orchestra?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's becoming legendary now. Unfortunately, a lot of the Middle East countries are in such incredible problems that not too many Syrians are going to his orchestra now, etc. I don't know exactly the number, but there's some Iranians playing in his orchestra, and it's a wonderful thing.
Such things are like the role of your colleague Kurt Masur in the democratic development of Eastern Germany, and Daniel Barenboim in dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians. Do you see yourself in such way engagement outside the classical music or through classical music in sending messages?
Well, we do that occasionally in Israel also. I have a foundation in the north of Israel where we teach mostly Arab Israelis. And it is my dream that one day there will be an Arab Israeli playing in the Israel Philharmonic. And it will not be in the distant future, because we have about 150 students in Nazareth and a little town called Shfaram. They are studying, and our musicians go there once or twice a month to supervise their education. And some of them, when they are high enough in standard, they come to the school in Tel Aviv at the university, where I have a school training them in orchestral playing. So we have about 8 or 9 Arabs just now studying in our school. And one of these days they will come for the audition. And you know, auditions are held behind curtains. So I'm praying one day the curtain will open and an Arab boy or a girl will be standing there. So I'm waiting for that.
Your first visit to Belgrade professionally was in 1958. Mm-hmm. So you're planning to come in 2018 to mark 60 years of...
We'll talk about it, I hope.
How can artists feel itself free when have such a tight schedule years in advance?
Well, 2018, I have to look for a week which will be convenient for everybody. I still haven't looked. I just had the idea. When Minister Tassovats was making his little introduction at the airport, I was counting on my fingers, and I suddenly realized in 2018 will be 60 years.
So how many projects do you have in advance nowadays?
Well, I'm now looking at 18 and 19 a little bit.
So do you feel comfortable?
Well, we all have this paranoia. If you want to have good singers, you have to ask them also at least 3 years in advance. So it goes hand in hand, especially in the operatic world. We have to work a lot in advance.
And how you choose the music you're going to work? Do you have your own wishes?
Well, it's always with discussion. Depends what they want, what the orchestra, for instance, to choose a program with the Berlin Philharmonic in 2018. I have to see what the music director is doing, what soloists we want, what they want, and that's how it takes a little correspondence to build programs.
And you don't have such a freedom to choose the music you want?
Well, with my Israel Philharmonic or Florence, I'm the music director, so I choose my programs what I want. and then the guest conductor. When I'm a guest conductor with Vienna and Berlin, I have to see what they are doing too. So one has to be flexible.
How the recording production and the development of technology influence the classical music nowadays?
Well, it should influence even more, but we are making less and less recordings. I think the Baroque people are recording more because that was never done before. So in the last 10 years, the repertoire of Baroque music and operas in the recording field has advanced immensely. How many times can we record Beethoven and Brahms symphonies? It's enough. Now the younger generation should do it too.
But when you say enough, working on the same score few times or many times in your career.
That's different. But I don't have the ambition anymore to again record all the Tchaikovsky symphonies. I did it once. I did once all the Brahms symphonies, once all the Schumann symphonies. Beethoven not, I didn't do all of them. But I'm not pushing myself towards recording companies if they come and they want to do something, I have to consider it.
I had a professor of conducting 20 years ago who was in his 80s then, working on the Brahms 4th Symphony for like 4th or 5th time in his career. And he told us, last night I was reading the score and I found something completely new. I never see. How many times you found that?
That happens all the time. All the time. Even during rehearsals, it happens. Musicians are also playing it for the 50th time. They have also played it under very fine conductors. They have had different interpretations or different advice from conductors. And if a soloist does something completely opposite to my conception, I listen. And if it's a variation that I can live with, I can do that. Otherwise, I say very respectfully, listen, I don't completely agree with what you're doing. But it happens rarely because in the great orchestras, they are the finest musicians sitting there who have also thought about what they are doing and who offer their best. And you have to respect that too.
Did you still learning from the musicians?
Yes. Learning means we get inspired by a very, very fine soloist in the orchestra. And then that becomes your axiom, your barometer to compare with others.